Let's now welcome political analyst Mr. Bongani Mahlangu to weigh in on the issue of breakaway parties as well as their impact in the political landscape. Bongani, thank you so much for joining us. So looking at a string of these breakaway parties, we've just seen there PEMO, which is a breakaway from the NFP, launching its manifesto. We know about MK and various others, but let's talk about how they often end up in total disarray because of internal leadership squabbles. And why do you think this is always often the case?
No, thanks for having me. Greetings to you and greetings to the viewers at home. So I think, as you have stated, we'll just start there, that almost all major political formations are going into this 2024 elections with a surrogate, with a breakaway party. The ANC being MK, COPE being SARA, DA being Action SA, BOSA, and even Shiluba. Some might argue that Shiluba shouldn't be there. EFF, Team Sugar SA, which I don't believe will be contesting the general elections. And then you have the NFP with the All African People's Movement. So when we look into this breakaway, the only political impact they tend to have is that they eat away from what I would call their mother bodies, in inverted commas, and drive us into coalition formations. And then when you also look into them, you'll find that most of the time these breakaways are not because of ideological differences, but because of power preferences, leadership preferences. I mean, even if you look at the All African People's Formation, you find that it itself as an organization had a leadership dispute beginning of the year, and it itself comes from NFP, where it was born out of a leadership dispute when the leader of the organization was being removed as a member of the provincial legislature and also as a provincial chair of KwaZulu-Natal. You also find that they fail to define themselves outside the shade of their parent organizations and mostly mobilize disgruntled members and supporters rather than untapped voter markets. So there's no new support base that they create. So you find that their existence is more parasitic because they eat from what exists, which is their mother organizations. So they basically develop a lifeboat for those that are disgruntled on the main ship. You also find that they are generally established around a cult figure, and that individual's political outlook tends to then shape the political position or policy preferences of that organization. So there is nothing really that defines them ideologically from the organization that they would have came from their mother body, but just a disgruntled individual at times that when they live with people that support the individual. And if you look at their political outlook or ideological outlook, it's similar, if not the same, as that of the mother body. So if you're disgruntled in the main ship, you can come and join us here. Even if you look at MK, the utterances that they've made, they are just in disagreement with the current leadership of the ANC, but not necessarily with the policies, the ideology, or the general political outlook of the ANC. So they even stated that once this leadership is gone, or these political power players at the moment are gone, they are willing to go back. And also in their formation as MK, they are willing to work with the ANC, because if you look at it, as I said, in terms of policy preferences or political formations, political positions, it's almost the same thing.
And I mean, with that in mind, Bongani, then aren't voters being taken for a ride or being misled if such parties, if their function as well as purpose is only to steal votes or actually just destabilize their mother bodies?
Definitely. But then we'll have to go back to what I said, that the voters, these political formations, these surrogates target, are the voters that would have ordinarily voted for their mother bodies, for the main organization, for the main ship. So they eat into that voter base. So you'll find that their interest in the main is not necessarily to tap into new voter markets, try to convince people otherwise. So they look at who's disgruntled. And if you look at their leadership, if they have the national structure, provincial and local structure, you'll find that almost all their main leaders are people that come from the main organization. So most of the time, voters in South Africa are not really interested in these people because they know them for who they really are, which is just a shadow of the main organizations. Yes, some of them at times in the long run, they go on and define themselves entirely different and tap into new voter markets. We can look at maybe the EFF, for example. They define themselves a bit more different in terms of their branding, but not necessarily political or policy position. And then they target the segment of the population being the youth, and they use that as their base, while then older people came in or elder people came in and supported them. So they tried at least to distinguish themselves somehow a little bit from the main organization, but voters are generally not fooled. And then also, if you look into the example of Action SA, as a surrogate of the DA. So you'll find that Action SA projects itself as different from the DA. However, if you look into maybe into councils such as Ekurhuleni and any other council where there are coalitions and votes are required, you find that they almost always, if not always, vote with the DA, regardless of which position the DA is. So in the media, they come across as people who do not always agree with the DA, who do not want to be bullied by the DA. But when it comes to where it matters the most in terms of voting in a council for a power, for an authority, they are most likely to vote with their mother body. So voters in South Africa see that.
And then in closing, Bongani, very quickly, I mean, I know we're just still, celebrating 30 years of our constitutional democracy, and the right to choose is chief among those. So shouldn't these parties then not be allowed to register as an independent or single body, knowing very well that, I mean, their function is only just to disturb the status quo, and maybe they need to then be forced under some, I don't know, maybe we'll curtail new rights or laws that will force them to ensure that they go into bed with somebody else and not contest for elections independently?
So that becomes a bit difficult because they do enjoy these legislative provisions or freedoms, the right of association, the right of formation politically. So regardless of what the motive may be or what the vendetta may be, legislatively, they are still eligible to exist in the formats that they do. So what is more required is that there should be political education to the masses to say that if a party so and so has been established, what exactly do they seek to achieve? Value do they seek to bring to you? What is the democratic dividend that they are promising you? And then that is when they can actually be tested for their true motives. But to try to restrain them legislatively, I have a problem because they do enjoy these rights. The leaders, the political formations, as also as legislative or legal persons, and you can't take that away from them, even though they do have a vindictive mandate where they're actually trying to destroy their mother body. As I said, it's a parasitic kind of relationship with their mother body and do not necessarily have the interest of all South Africans at heart. But South Africans must wise up. They must be critical as to when they choose the basket of political parties that they want to support in the three ballots going into the 2024 election. But unfortunately, we can't train them legislatively.
A vindictive mandate, says Mr. Bongani Mahlangu. Thank you so much for your input this afternoon.